My very dear brothers, my very dear Lasallians, this is the Holy Year. And so recently I had the opportunity to visit St. Peter's Basilica together with a handful of colleagues so that we could pass through the Holy Door as pilgrims of hope. I remember Pope Francis and his prayer that the world would encounter that hope which does not disappoint. That really touched me because I remember all of those hopes that were quashed in my heart. But I also remember in a very special way Jesus with just a dozen close friends. When he started his ministry, he proclaimed the Father's grand dream for the world. The dream was simple, but very, very profound. No more weeping, good news to the poor, liberty for prisoners, recovery of sight for the blind, freedom for the oppressed. As we speak, my thoughts are still with the families in Ukraine and Gaza, whose children are unable to go to school. I still could not remove from my mind the videos and pictures of collapsing buildings and homes in Myanmar and Thailand during the recent earthquake that hit that part of Southeast Asia. And what are those other sufferings in other parts of the world? What about the migrants living in anxiety and fear as they escape their homelands to seek asylum and new opportunities in cities they cannot call home just yet? Dear friends, as a global community of Lasallians, united with one heart and one mind, we may be holding the key to doors of salvation for those who are discouraged and continue to live in pessimism or cynicism. What doors may we open for them so that they could have an intense experience of God? May we allow ourselves to become instruments of God's grace, of healing and hope. Are we ready to welcome and embrace the lost, the last and the least, so that they could touch the hem of Jesus' cloak, the cloak that brings salvation? Not salvation up there, but salvation from hunger and thirst, from poverty and alienation, and from anything and everything in this world that drags them down or pushes them to the peripheries. This is the Holy Year, a Jubilee Year. May we open our hearts to young people so their woes may find a listening ear, feel welcome in safe spaces, and experience anew unconditional love and renewed hope. What small acts of kindness may we do today to stop the vicious cycle of violence and hatred that is so easily ignited? What collective action among Lasallians could we bring so that we may be closer to greater authenticity and integrity? Dear friends, we have designated 2025 as the Year of Lasallian Spirituality. It is an invitation for us to reconnect with our founder and our founding story, and then to ask ourselves, how may we live that story in our time? Remember, more than 300 years ago, Jean-Baptiste, just at the age of 28, gathered a few young men to form a community of teachers so they may proclaim the Father's grand dream for children, especially those who are far from salvation. He envisioned inclusive schools that were open to everyone, especially the poor, who had no way of overcoming the social and economic barriers of their time. Just think about that for a moment. In both founding stories, Jesus and Jean-Baptiste de La Salle, both of them gathered a handful of dreamers and shared with them the Father's captivating dream for the world. Imagine, the Lasallian family is united with one heart and one spirit to bring light and life and love to the whole world. Consider the power generated if we claim today what we imagine we can be tomorrow. One LaSalle for the world, with big dreams and even bigger hearts. Imagine the transformative power of a family united, indivisa manent, as we say, filled with the same spirit as the fire burning in the hearts of the first disciples. We hold the key to new pathways for children and young people who are still far from salvation. The world has always been shaped by dreamers. Like any true dreamer, De La Salle committed himself to make real God's dream and made it his lifetime project since he became fully convinced that it is God's work and he was called to be an instrument of his grace, Christ's ambassador to children and youth. As Jean-Baptiste de La Salle embraced the mission that God had reserved only for him, he became aware that he cannot do this by his lonesome self, especially since he was reluctant to take on a mission that did not feel competent to undertake. But our gentle God led him almost by the hand, and step by step, beginning with that chance encounter with Adrian Niel at the doorsteps of a sister's convent. A series of other events and human encounters convinced him that God was asking him to take on this new mission. He then started to bring together a handful of young teachers with whom he shared God's dream for poor children. This additional step eventually made him decide to leave the comfort of his family home and the benefits of the canonry to live with the other young teachers, thus forming a community so they may be brothers to each other, older brothers to the children entrusted to their care. It was only in hindsight that they realized that in the process, they were creating a new pathway to live God's dream. A new religious family in the church composed only of religious brothers, and a new educational model that seeks to liberate the poor through education. They initiated educational projects and worked together and by association with the early benefactors, supportive municipal authorities, and sympathetic ecclesiastics. They planned and restructured their daily routine so they could be effective in the mission. With a few of them, he later vowed to keep the mission alive, even if they had to live only on bread and water for the rest of their lives. They sought God together, and it was together that they found God. Their dream took shape not in grand proclamations and not in extraordinary events, but in the small, decisive steps and struggles to live in authentic fraternity and committed service to their educational mission. This holy year of grace, on this year of Lasallian spirituality, I pray that we would dare live the dream once again in audacity and much hope, a hope that will never, ever disappoint. Animo Lasal. Live Jesus in our hearts forever.